So we have 2 hours followed by another 2 hours. And what we're going to cover is more of Power BI. But we are not going to talk about data visualization too much because by now you have a sense, right, of what is Power BI and how is it better than Excel. In a lot of ways, it's similar to Excel when you create a simple chart like a bar, pie, column chart. But then certain options are not even available when it comes to um, different charts. For example, the map, right? So you will not have that option with you in Excel. So in certain cases, it's an improvement over Excel, and in certain cases, it is the only option you have because Excel doesn't offer that capability. There are more than 300 visualizations available on Power BI. And if you remember the example I showed you with the formatting one, right? This one, where we put the zoom slider and change the color and added the label. There are many options available in formatting, right? So just keep that in mind, that every visual by itself will have like dozens of options in it, right? So the question is, how do you learn all this? The first thing you have to understand is that nobody learns everything. It is impossible. It's just like programming, where we say that no programmer knows everything. It's not possible. Right? Python, for example, has, I don't know, 50,000, 70,000 libraries in it. Each library in itself has dozens of things in it. So your goal has to be very realistic and smart, right? So the idea of Power BI is that you improve your skill level, right? What I mean is that today, if somebody asks you what level are you at, you will say I'm at a level 1 or 2, right? Hopefully by the end of this training, you'll be at a level 3. So you will say that I have knowledge of what is Power Query, what is DAX, but I cannot write complex DAX queries. I can create visualizations, but I cannot create very complex visualizations, right? That's how you have to answer. When you say that, okay, when I've reached level 5, that means you can build custom visualizations. You can make more customized visuals, and you can also write some complex calculations. The biggest problem with students is that we always feel that, okay, when I go from basic to intermediate to advanced, we are learning more topics. That seldom happens. When you say that you're improving or you're learning a tool better, what you mean to say is you're improving the depth with which you're learning it, right? It doesn't mean that you skip out an area completely. I can give you numerous instances where trainings that are conducted on Power BI, both for corporate and for B schools, don't even talk about Power Query and DAX. I did a 1-month induction session for the Global Business Operations batch at Shriram College of Commerce, right? They have an MBA program. Till last year, EY was handling that project. This year, I won that bid and I did that 1-month engagement for them. See, EY is a client of mine, so I'm not pointing fingers or anything. I'm just stating facts. EY was talking about finance, auditing, assurance, and a little bit of analytics, and which is data visualization. And when I spoke to Shriram College of Commerce, I said, why is that even important? Are all of these guys going to get into finance? I mean, 50% of them at least are going to get into marketing, and the others probably might also pick some other areas, right? EY was doing what is comfortable for them. That was their comfort area, right? So I completely redesigned that program, and we ended up doing many different things. So we did, it was a 70 hours course. So we did design thinking, Power BI, Tableau, Excel. And it was covered in a lot of detail. Like we spent 12 hours just on Power BI, 12 or 14 hours. Again, the point I'm trying to make here is that when you talk to anybody that this is how good I am on Excel or on PowerPoint or on Power BI, never say that I don't know these features at all. The correct answer would be that this feature I'm at a level 2, this feature I'm at a level 4, this feature I'm at a level 1. That makes more sense. But if you say that I have absolutely no clue about this area, then that is not correct, right? So it would have been very fun for me to cover 4 more hours of visuals with you, and all of us would have liked it. But there's no point, right? Because then you're completely skipping out the tough part, which is slightly the boring part. That's what I want to cover today. So very quickly, what all had been done till yesterday? So we have done our Q&A. We created a dashboard with small multiples. After that, we did 2 more AI features. We have analyze and summarize. So analyze was simply right click and analyze like this, and summarize was right click and summarize like this. If you want to add something of your own to the summary, for example, the total profit, right, which wasn't there originally, you can just type the text, right, and then say that I want to add a value. So you click on value and you can ask a question live. Ask a question, save it as a variable name, and you can use it inside the text box. Then we did the ribbon chart, a very special chart which allows you to see the change QOQ, YOY, MOM. So that would be month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year. We spent a lot of time on the scatter chart, which is where we have the play axis, as you can see. And then we did scatter with clusters, which was clicking on the three dots and selecting clusters. And I also showed you that in Power BI, it's very limited because you can't really remap anything. The only thing I can do is rename the cluster. That's it. That's it, nothing else. I can't see the logic behind it. I can't make any changes to it. Tableau is a little better because it allows you to remap the clusters, but even in Tableau, you can't see anything else. If you want to read about it, the two that you should be going through, one is supervised, the other is unsupervised, is k-means and knn, right? K nearest neighbor and k-means. Just pick up any good article on the internet. There are hundreds of them available. And even if you feel, but I don't know Python, or maybe I don't know Python to this depth, why should I read the article? I always suggest do that. See, even if you don't understand an article 100%, it doesn't matter. At least you will understand 20%, 15%, 10%, something. You will understand the overall schematic of how it works. If I share with you my journey of Python, which started in 2018. I started working on Python in 2018, just 3 years back. I had no idea about Python, right? So I was literally, like you would do, I would go to YouTube and search for the most basic tutorials, how to download. Even downloading and installing took me a lot of time, right? But then I used to watch videos. I am very, very persevering. You know, when it comes to doing something, then I don't look at my watch, right? So I can sit through the night. I can study for 10 hours straight, right? With the same level of intensity. So that's what I used to do. I used to read and I used to watch videos. And yes, this is what I did not understand. But that's okay, because at least I became aware of what is Python and what can I do. And you know, all those things help me going forward. So my suggestion to you would be, don't worry too much. If you feel that I'm doing this course, but I don't think I'm following this 100%, that's okay. It happens to everyone. Right now, I'm doing a few courses on LinkedIn Learning, and there's a lot of it that is going right over my head. And that's okay, because I don't think about what I did not understand. I'm more optimistic, right? I look at the glass half full and I say, okay, but there is something that I've understood. It's not a complete waste of time, right? So that attitude is very important. Okay. So let's start with the second example today. I will take about 5 minutes to tell you what the problem is, right? And then we will start working on it. Before that, I also promised I'll show you the visual vocabulary, right, available on Power BI. So this is called the Financial Times visual vocabulary. You can just Google it, the FT visual vocabulary. And if you do an image search, this is what you get. So what they have done here is they have taken a collection of different charts, some basic, some advanced charts. So common and uncommon charts. And they have put it all together into categories. So they say that these are this type, you know, these are types of comparison, these are ranking, these are spatial, like that. So if you look here, what some guy has done, his name is Jason, right? He runs a website called SQL Jason. What he has done is he has taken all the Financial Times charts and he has created them on Power BI. How cool is that? And here's the best part. I'm not just going to give you a link where you can see the image. I'm going to send you something where it's interactive, right? Let's just have a look at that. All right, so I'm looking for the FT visual vocabulary by SQL Jason. Right? You might have to give me a moment to find the correct link, but because I know it is there, of course I'll find it. Wait. So this is my direct link, but is this the one we want? No, because we want to download it, correct? So while I can interact with everything, this is not the one I want. I want to find the one which I can download. Hold on. You can download the source file from here. Okay. Yeah, this is the one. ABIs. Perfect. I'm sharing this link with everybody. Please download it. It's on the chat window. The download link is here in the source file. You can download the source file from here. Another very important point is this one. If you look at this, it says that he says that the tools might be different, but the techniques that you learn in one tool can be easily applied in others. For example, if you work on Power BI, you should be able to do the same thing on Tableau as well, right? That's what I was telling you from the beginning. It is not about the tool. It is about learning what are you doing and learning the logic behind it. If you learn one tool, learning others becomes simple. Anyway, so I hope all of you have opened it and downloaded it. So what he has done is he has taken these very simple data sets and a lot of different data sets, and he has created 9 different types of visualizations. So we have deviation, correlation, ranking, distribution, part to whole, magnitude, flow, change over time, and spatial, right? Some of these visuals use R. So that's why you notice that I have installed R, and right now I'm installing the package. But most of them are just normal visuals. Some of them do require R to be installed on your system. Right? I'm not really sure why it's taking so much time, but why can't even continue while that is happening? Okay, okay, it is working. Let's just wait for a few seconds. Perfect. Okay, so if I click on deviation, you can see there are different types of charts that have been created. We have the diverging bar, very simple. We have some positive values, some negative values. Then we have the diverging stacked bar. We have the the spine chart. And then we have the surplus deficit and the surplus deficit step line. And these are fairly simple. We have seen something very similar to this on Excel as well. Now, this is where it gets interesting. If you look at the others, for example, let's look at correlation. Yesterday, I did the scatter chart for you. Then you have a combo chart. Then you have a bubble chart. You have a heat map. And as you go through all these examples, you start to see that, oh, there are a lot of different options available. For example, there's something called the slope chart. This is something that consulting firms use very often, right? So BCG, KPMG, EY, in their reports, you will see them using slope charts very, very frequently. What does it do? It just shows you like this, 2 points, right? So either a before and after, right? Or 2 points that you want to compare, right? And this is for ranking. This is called the bump chart. So it shows you how over time your United States rank is changing, right? So basically in this 2005-6 period, they shifted 1 point, right? So they dropped one rank. So they went from 1 to 2 like that. So like this, there are different charts that have been created, as you can see. Some of them you would know, some of them you would not know. For example, the Marimekko, right? Marimekko again is a very common consulting chart. It is like a stacked column chart, but the width of each column is also different, right? So it shows the size and the proportion at the same time. The spatial will not work. For the spatial to work, you will need to get an access token. So you basically have to create a free account on something called Mapbox. Mapbox is a map provider and they have a free account as well. So you just have to go to the website and basically, let me see if I can show it to you. Okay, so I want to paste it in the Power BI Viz format panel. Okay, let's go to format and check if I have the option to paste my access token. Yeah, okay, very cool, right? So if you look here, I'm able to paste my access token. And the moment it detects that there is an access token, look at the beautiful maps that I am able to create now. This is a heat map, something a lot of my clients like to use. So in the energy and power sector, this is very important. You know, for example, if you want to see something like electricity consumption, I work a lot with the energy and power sector. Think about it. In the energy and power sector, are you going to create this? Not really. You're going to create something like this because that makes more sense. You don't want to see individual households. You want to see a region and see what is the consumption for that region. This is called the dot density. So basically every unique point has been plotted here. Like you can't see them independently, but if you notice, do you see this? We have my latitude and longitude. It's literally plotting each point on the lat and the norm. How cool is that? So if I look at my data set here, if I show you my lat and norm, which is dot density, you will see that I have 23,000 points, right? On my map. It's nothing else. I just have the lat and norm data, nothing fancy. And it's literally plotting 23,000 points for me. Just see how nice this looks. Right. Any questions, anybody? I've already shared the link with you. The data sets are already there inside it, so you can always try and practice this. Is it possible for me to share the map of? No, there's no access, honey. You just go to the website, you create a free account. I also don't have a paid account. Just go to Mapbox, create a free account, and you will automatically get a default public book, right? Or you will get one of your own. It's completely free of cost. As you can see, I also don't have a paid account. Okay, so you just have to click on create a token and it creates a token for you. I'm not even sure how much it costs. So I think this is pay as you go, if I'm not mistaken. $50 per month for essential support. Anyway, yeah, but for all your requirements, it's free, right? So you don't really have to pay any money for this. Okay. This should also tell you one other thing. So as a data analyst, of course, I'm expected to learn how to write complex formulas and learn how these tools work. But equally, if not more important, is my ability to find the right content on the internet. Now, how did I know that this exists? Even the people who know that this is there don't know that there is an interactive one available. They know that they have an image available, right? But they don't know that there's an interactive chart. So this ability right, of being able to know where the right content is there. So if you notice, I know exactly what is where. So if you ask me, can you tell me something on Python on Power BI? I know exactly the link that you have to put. Now, the cynical mind will say, how does it matter? You have also Googled it, we can also Google it. I mean, but by that logic, why do you even study? If everything is available on Google, then why do you even need to study? The skill, the hard work that I have put in is to train myself how to find the right content. Right? And I can find content better than all of you can. Just as an example, if I go to Stack Overflow and I search for Excel, you see that there are 2.55 lakh articles on Excel. How do you think you're going to find the right one? Right? You won't know, right? Especially if you look at something where there are more words like this one. Just look at the length of this one article. Somebody asked a question, right? And just look at the number of comments on that. How do you think you will find the right content on this? Right? So I would know exactly what to do, where to search, what to discard, right? So that's the point. Now you might say, but you're not telling us how you do it. You're just telling us this is important. Of course, because it's very easy. You just have to put in hard work. You just have to keep on studying and studying and studying. And you have to tell yourself that if others are investing 30 minutes, I have to invest 5 hours in it. As simple as that. Right? And I have invested thousands of hours learning and training myself on all these things. And I continue to do so. Right? And that's what you have to do as well. So there are no shortcuts to this. Even if I give you my entire list of bookmarks, right? If you say I'm in a good mood and I tell you, you know what, take my entire list of Excel websites. I will give you all the 500 websites I have on Excel. What would you do with it? Would you know how is a WebSR different from an Excel off the grid? No. Now I know that a WebSR is specifically for VBA codes and for add-ins. And I know that a JKP ads is for Outlook and Excel automation, right? Now, that's the point, right? Unless you know exactly what these websites contain, just having a list doesn't make any sense. So don't get into the habit of collecting stuff. Collecting stuff is not going to help you. You have to also start reading them and understand what all is available in it. And this is a long process. It is not a 1 day or a 1 month or a 1 year process. I've been doing these things for many, many years now, right? So it's never too late to start. I mean, I started when I was in college. All of these things that you see, all of this I started when I was still in college. And this is something that really helps me and something I'm very proud of. And I would recommend that you start doing it today as well. Perfect. So I've showed you the FT visual vocabulary, everyone. Please make sure to go back and have a look at this. All right, let's start with our problem now. Halil, I am not an expert. I mean, I just showed you what all is there. So if you ask me specifically about the arc chart, I'm not really sure. I'll try to answer it, but I not want to spend too much time on it. I just spend like 1 minute on it. If I have the answer. I don't know if I do. I'm sorry, what is the arc chart? I don't see an arc chart. Which one are you referring to? Part to whole. This is just, we sometimes call it a heavy cycle. Basically, it's like 360. If you have a complete circle, right, like a pie chart, you would say that this is 30%, 60%, 20%, isn't it? This is just a semicircle, that's all, right? And the semicircle consists of a different number of dots, right? So assuming that there are 3 and 7, so let's say there are about 150 dots here. So because there are only 10 dots here, this is a certain percentage. That's all it is. A lot of political analysis uses this. I'm not sure if I'll be able to find it for you or not. The arc chart for political analysis. See, do you see this? This is a very common chart, both in the US, in India, everywhere. This is a very common way of presenting political data. So if you look at US election result, I remember when the live results were being displayed on Google, of course, now you will not find it, but when Google used to display the live polling results, no, they used to create this arc chart. I'm not sure how we'll find it now, but yeah, that's what they used to do. Let's give it a shot. By the way, this is the density plot, the one I showed you, right? I can't really find that here. Anyway, I mean, that's what I'm saying. No, you have to search hard if you want to find this one. You see this? Like this. It's a very popular visualization. All right. Cool. Let's start with the problem now. So first, let me explain what we are trying to do. Okay? You don't need to open any file right now. We'll do that later. So the problem we have is that we have different files with us. So we have the sales for 17, 18, 19. We have the sales for 2020. But there are two things that are missing from this. One is category, the other is ID and name. This discount, let's leave for now, right? It's just a repetition, so we'll not do this. So I'm going to delete it to avoid any confusion. So we have two separate files for the category and the ID and name. The first question is, why are these separate? So if I open 17, 19 and I open 17, it's a very simple data. Order date, ship date, customer ID, city, state, segment, subcategory, sales, quantity, profit. And if I open my ID and name data, you notice that this has a list of ID and name. Okay. So I would like you to tell me, anyone, I would like you to tell me that if I know the ID, right, can I know who the name is, what the name is? How do I do that? So if I have another file where I have the name with me, what formula in Excel will I have to write? So if I say equal to, what do I have to write? So if I need to search for 34617, and here I know that 34617 is Mission on it, how do I do that? No, actually find will only find the character within a cell. So when I say find, you notice that it only finds a character within one cell. So if I say that I want to find the letter J, right, within Jabalpur, it will tell me that it is the first character, but it will not help me find it like this. What formula did we use when we were doing the repeat customers? Can any of you remember what formula were we using when I was searching in customer ID and getting a result from me? The third most used function in Excel. Let me give you a hint. We are trying to look up a value. VLOOKUP, right? So if I had to do this using VLOOKUP, which 99% of the people would do, I would say VLOOKUP. What is my lookup value? 34617. What is my table array? I will select these two columns. What is my column number? 2, which means I need a result from the name, and then I do a false, which is the default. So it tells me it is on mission. Now you might say, but Havish, this was very simple. Why don't you do this? Can somebody tell me why is this not a good idea? Why don't I just do what I showed you just now? Just write a VLOOKUP. Can you guess what is the problem if I just do VLOOKUP? This is my hint to everyone. There are many disadvantages to using VLOOKUP. Tell me all the disadvantages that you can think of. Okay. It won't work if both the files are not present, but Hadi, I'm assuming here that I do have both the files with me. The data is available, but you're right. If you have to use VLOOKUP, then of course the person needs to have both the files at that point of time. Completely agree to that, right? What else? Assuming that you do have both the files, even then there are some issues. What are they? Think. Okay, I'll give you a hint. How many files do we have here? 3. So how many times do I have to write VLOOKUP? 3, isn't it? So what is the problem? How would you explain it? So if a client comes to you and says that Havish or Harneel or Akshay, what is the problem in writing VLOOKUP? What would you tell them? Time consuming. One is time consuming, the other it is manual. It is not automated, right? And that's the big problem, right? Because today you have 3 files and you will say, how does it matter? I can open each one of them and then copy and paste the formula. But when you do a copy and paste, what is the risk? Let's say you had 30 files with you and you said, I'm okay with opening each file and doing a copy and paste. What is the risk when you do copy and paste? Exactly. There is a high possibility of a mistake that happens. Even data loss, absolutely. Data loss is not really the most important concern here, but it's a valid concern, right? And it's a good point. So the problem is that it's not automated. It's very time consuming and it has a lot of risk of errors that happen, right? And one thing that you guys will not be able to think of is the fact that it increases the complexity of the file, because that means that you have to put a formula in each and every file. You have to put a formula in each and every row, right? So from an IT perspective, we call this something called data normalization. Now, I'm not going to get into details here. Data normalization is a concept that essentially comes from database management. And like I told you earlier, when I did my MBA in 2009, it was not important for me to learn how to create a model and how to create connections, right? But today it is, because today an MBA has to know how these things work, because you have tools like Power BI. Again, in 2009, I would not have needed to know what is database normalization, because somebody in MBA IT would have done that. But today I have to know what it is, at least a little bit, because it is important. I can't work on Power BI or on Tableau if I don't know what is database normalization. Again, you don't need to get into detail. It can get quite complex, but at a very basic level, we call them like this. So we call them normal forms, right? So I'll give you an example. We have a data like this, which is full name, physical address, movies rented, and the salutation. So basically, these are people who are renting a movie from a store. Even though today that doesn't happen because everything is online and OTT, but I'm just taking an example that you're renting something from a store. Now, the moment you look at the data, most of you will say, but this is correct, there's nothing wrong in the data, but there is a lot wrong in the data. The problem is that according to database normalization, this is not correct because you can't have multiple values in one cell. It says Pirates of the Caribbean and Clash of the Titans. That doesn't make sense. You need to have only one value in one cell. So the first thing we will do is we will make it in different cells, right? So rather than saying Pirates of the Caribbean, I'll write it in 2 different cells. Now you might say, but why are we copying Janet Jones 2 times? Because you have to. This is correct. Each record has to be individual, right? Okay. Then we continue and then we say that. Also, why is the movie rented written completely? That means, why are we writing the complete name of the movie? Because that is creating repetition, isn't it? See, if 2 people are renting the same movie, Clash of the Titans and Clash of the Titans, I'm using space, I'm using memory of my system. because I have to write it 2 times. That is why what you're doing is you're creating a unique ID for each of the movies. Because by doing that, you are able to assign it a key or a code. So you can say that 1 stands for this and 2 stands for this and so on and so forth. So basically, that's the idea. The idea of doing this is to make sure that you are creating as efficient a model as possible. Right? That's the end objective. The model, the database should be as efficient as possible. And right, so eventually we come to this. So if you notice, this is my third factor, which is what we usually use in organization. We have the membership ID, we have the name, and we have the physical address, and we have the salutation. So in the first table, I'm not writing Mr. and Miss. That has been written in this one, right? Also, in the first one, I'm only writing the membership ID. That means I'm not writing the movies that they have rented. I'm just saying what is their member ID. Like all of you have a unique email, right? You have a student code. So we're saying that Janet Jones is 1, Robert is 2, and there are 2 Roberts, right? So Robert Phil is 3 because there are 2 different people. So the second person is renting 2 movies, first person is renting 2 movies, third is renting only 1 movie. And by breaking the database into different tables, we are able to improve the efficiency. Okay? It maintains accuracy, it reduces redundancy, it improves time, reduces errors, also ensures data security. Because if you keep all the data in one place, there's always a risk. Don't you read about it that Twitter got hacked, that this company got hacked, this has been leaked? Why does that happen? Because if you don't manage your data effectively, essentially everything gets lost. But by breaking it up into different places, you can maintain access of different levels over it. I share the link with you. It's a very good link because I've gone through it myself. And for beginners, when you're trying to understand what database is from a normalization perspective, this will really help you. Okay? Microsoft also has an article on database normalization, but it's a little more difficult than the one that is this one. But I'll still share the link with you. Whichever one is comfortable to you, please do that. This is like a absolute must. Like you can't work in data, even on Excel, if you don't know what this is. I don't care if this has not been taught till now, but you have to learn it now. Okay. Great. Let's come back. So I have proven my point why it is important for me to break the data into different pieces, right? Okay, similarly, I have the subcategory, but we don't have the category. The category is in a different file. So let's do it one by one. Okay. First problem. We have 4 years of sales. We have 17, 18, 19, and we also have 2020. 2020 is in a different folder because it's a new year, right? So I want to keep it separately. 17, 18, 19 is my historical data. So my first task is to bring all the 4 files together so that they become one file. Because I don't want to work on all 4 of them independently. I want to work on them together. Let's see how we do that. So let's open Power BI. Everyone, let's open Power BI. And please make sure to work on a new file. Don't work on the same file. I'm also doing that. So we are going to open a new file and save as. And let's put it in desktop current XIM files Power BI, and I want to call this 03 December. And let's see. So far, we have only selected an Excel file, which we did 2 days back and yesterday. Today, I want to show you get data. Excel is not the only type of file that Power BI can connect to. It can connect to about 100 different types of files. Let's see what the options are. So click on get data and click on more. So click on get data and click on more. And you notice that there are different types of files available. So we have Excel, text, CSV, XML, JSON, folder, PDF, SharePoint. Then we have databases. We have SQL Server, Access, SSAS, Oracle, different types of IBM databases, MySQL, which is one of the largest ones in the world, Postgres, and then we also have SAP, Amazon, Google BigQuery. So do you see the number of options that are available here? And not just those by Microsoft, by other providers as well. Then you have the Microsoft Power Platform. I will not get into what it is. It's basically a platform created for Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate. Then you have Microsoft Azure, which is Microsoft Cloud. So I told you there are three of them: Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, and Azure, three largest ones in the world. Then you have some other online connectors, for example, SharePoint, Dynamics, Azure, Salesforce, Google Analytics, Adobe Analytics. And then you also have other, which is Python, R, directly connecting to a website, right, like this. So if you want to connect to Bloomberg, right, let's say you're a finance student, you can connect directly to Bloomberg as well. You want to connect to SAP, you can connect directly to SAP. You want to connect to Salesforce, you can directly connect to Salesforce. Google Spreadsheets have also been introduced. I'm not sure. So Google Sheets can also be connected to directly from Power BI. But this was introduced only this month, as in November. So it is still in beta, but it works, right? So theoretically, you should be able to have a Google Sheet with you, and you should be able to select the data from that. Okay. Anyway, for now, we want to select file, and we want to select folder. Everyone, select file and then folder. Now you have to be very careful here. We want to select the folder that has 17, 18, 19 in it, okay? Not the entire folder, only select the folder that has 17, 18 and 19 in it. So I browse, my folder is in OneDrive, desktop, current, XIM, Power BI, model and 17, 19. Take your time and make sure to select the correct folder. Don't select the entire model folder. Don't select Power BI, only select this one, 1790. Once you do that, click on OK. And the first thing it will do is it will tell you that there are 4 files in that folder. Now you might be surprised because when you look at the folder, it seems that there are only 3 files in it, right? 3 Excel files. But now it tells you there is a 4th file. Any idea what this is? Anyone? What would be your guess? What do you think this file is? It's a hidden file, right? So in my folder, if I go to view and I say show me the hidden items, you can see that there is a hidden file. It's a blank file, there's nothing in it. It's completely blank. But I have kept it here for a reason, obviously, right? So for now, let's not worry about it. We know why there are 4 files that are being shown. We want to click on combine and transform, the first option. Combine and transform. The next thing it does is it asks you to select the sheet. One second, my pen is not working. One second. Once you select the folder, it tells you to select 2 things. One is the sample file, the other is the sheet. The sample file is any one of the 4 files, and then you have the sheet with you. Right? Now, what is the sample file? What relevance does it have? I will cover it in a little bit. And the sheet is nothing but the sheet that you want to combine. In our example, we only had 1 sheet in each of the files, so it's only giving me sheet 1. But if there were multiple sheets, it would have given me the option of choosing any one of those sheets. Right? That's it. Click on OK. And what will happen is that you might have to press Alt Tab, right? A new window will open. And now you can see that we are working on the Power Query Editor. In the top left corner, we are working on the Power Query Editor. So everyone, this is your first look at Power Query Editor. Power Query Editor is a component within Power BI. It is also available on Excel if you want to. And Power BI is not just a data visualization tool. It can also do queries like you're doing here. And if you look at the first column, you will see that we have been able to take 17, 18, and 19 like this. Okay. How cool is that? So it has basically selected all the 3 files from that folder, and it has been able to put all 3 of them together. Just make sure that all of you are able to see this result, and if you have any questions. Anyone? Any questions? Okay, I have a few questions for you. So, all right. Question number 1. What we are doing is called an append, right? Because we are combining data one below the other, right? So we call it an append. So if you have, for example, 5 rows, 1, 2, 3, and then 10, 11, we are making it into 5 rows. What we did was we had 3 files and we combined all the 3 files into a single file. That part is very clear, right? Here's my question. Think of the answer. There are 3 files. Each of the 3 files has 3 columns. But the order of the column is different. It has ABC, ABC, and ACB. Will it work or not work? What do you think will happen? Anyone? Right. Ritika, I hope your question has been answered that no, there will not be any issue if we select the data including the notepad, because Power BI in any case will exclude all the hidden files, right? Guys, what's your answer? Quick. See, it's either yes or no, right? So do you think it will work or do you think it will not work? Anyone? What's your answer? Actually, the question is that there are three files, and then each of the three files has three columns in it. Column A, B, C, column A, B, and C. But in the third file, the order of the columns is different. It is A, C, and B, right? So when I'm trying to combine everything like we just did, we had 17, 18, 19. But in our case, all the columns were exactly the same. My question is that what if the column is not the same? What if the order of the column is different? Do you think it will work or not work? It will work, right? So that's the beauty of Power Query, that even if the order of the columns is different, it will work perfectly, right? Okay. So I just need to excuse myself for 5 minutes or maybe 3 minutes. In the meantime, I'm giving you a small task. Come back to Power Query and open this, go to view and select formula bar. Everyone, go to view and then select the formula bar. Now you should be able to see the formula bar like this. And on the right side, you will have these applied steps. Just go over them one by one, right? There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps. Please go over all of them one by one. I know it is a different language, so I will be coming back and telling you what this is and how it is similar to Excel in certain ways, and it is also different to Excel. But I would like you to have a look at it, get comfortable with it. Some things you might not understand, that's okay. It's like learning a completely new language, but just go over all the 7 steps and try to get a sense of what is happening, right? And once I come back, I would like you to explain. So I just have to make a quick call. I'll be back in about 3 to 5 minutes. Okay? All right. So did you go through all the steps? Would you say that you have understood it a little bit, or is it completely questionable as to what happened? Anyone? Somewhat. I think that's a fair. I think that's a fair assessment. Like when I saw this for the first time, 3.5 years back, I understood it maybe 10-15% as to what is happening. Some things were completely non-understandable. For example, right, this one, the no, not the expand column, right? Because it doesn't make sense what expand column is doing. Also, when it says transform file content, it's not clear what transform file content is. Now, first things first. This is advanced Power Query, right? What I'm going to explain to you just now. This is advanced Power Query. You cannot understand all this today or even the next 6 months. It is going to take you a lot of time. By the way, this has been explained in my course, but it is complex, right? And you need to study a lot before you come to this point where you understand all of these things, how they are working. So I'm going to give you a very broad overview so that you understand how the language works. And of course, then you can practice on your own, right? So I'll take you through all the steps. Okay. Her shows the source of the file, filters to show the hidden data. I don't know what transform file is. It renames the column, removes the extra column, and expands the data, change type, what is the type, filter type. Yeah, I think that's a good, fair assessment of what is happening, right? For the next 2 minutes, 3 minutes, don't do anything, just listen, okay? First of all, what is Power Query? Power Query is what we refer to as an ETL tool, right? Which is extract, transform, and load, right? So if you notice, ETL is not something related to Power BI. ETL is a process, right? So wherever you say that I have my source data, so all my data is stored in a warehouse, or my data is stored in the cloud. Your data stored in the cloud will be massive amounts of data, right? But do you need all the data all the time? Of course not. So from that massive amount of data, I just need to know one thing. For example, you have the Bloomberg terminal, isn't it? Or let me take an example. Let me go to Money Control. When I go to Money Control and I search for Tata, what is happening right now? Money Control has a database where everything has been stored. But when I say Tata, we are extracting the data, isn't it? So when I click on extract, it is extracting the data only for Tata Consultancy Service. So if you notice here, moneycontrol.com, India, stock price code, computer software, and TCS. But let's say I wanted a different one, right? So I again go to Tata and I say, let me go to Tata Motors. Now you notice that there is a different code attached here. It says Auto LCD Tata Motors TM03, like this. So this is the query that is running in the background. This is the extraction part. Now, then you say that, okay, I have my data, which is presented in these different formats, and maybe I want to download some of it. I'm not even sure how to download on Money Control, if that is even possible. 1 second. Most of these seem to be, one moment. Okay, I'm not sure if there's an option to download. Anyway, so this is all extraction, right? So when I say that I want to pull the data, after that, once I have the data on Excel, right? So let's say I have this data set on Excel. So I'm just selecting this, opening an Excel file. Like this, right? I have extracted the data, but what does transformation mean? Transformation means doing some changes on it. For example, I will say, no, I don't want the data like this. I want the data to be transposed, like tabular format, basically. Like this, right? And then I also want to find the average of all of these numbers. This part is called transformation, right? So going back, after we have extracted the data for Tata Motors, we are making some changes to the data. We are doing some calculations, we are deleting some rows, we are adding some columns. And after that, we load the data. After loading the data, we come to Power BI. So always remember, when you have the data on Power BI, that is the final step. Before getting the data to Power BI, there is a lot of work that needs to happen, isn't it? First, you need to extract the data you want. Then you want to transform it, make some changes to it. And then finally, you want to load it to Power BI. That ETL is what is happening via Power BI. Okay? So when you look at SQL, which I'm sure all of you would have heard of, even if you haven't worked on it, what is it? The basic idea of SQL is to do this, right? So when we talk about SQL, ETL, right? Extracting, transforming, loading. Then we also have something called CRUD. CRUD refers to create, read, update, and delete. Create means creating a new record. Read is simply reading that record. Update is updating the record, modifying it. And delete is deleting the record. Okay. But Power Query is in a very interesting space because Excel is a wonderful tool used by 750 million people in the world, but there's a problem. Excel has limitations, right, with what it can do. It can't work with large data sets, for example. On the other hand, we have SQL, which is very powerful. It's how databases are managed, but SQL is very complex, right? It requires you to have that background in IT to learn how to work with SQL so that you can extract, transform, load the data that you want. That is why Power Query was launched, because that is a middle ground. It is in between Excel and SQL. So it is much more powerful than Excel formulas, but it is not as complex as SQL. So if you look at it, Power Query can connect to hundreds of data sources, right? You can do APIs, you can build your own connectors. It has more than 300 transformations, many more than Excel. And the best part is no coding required. Power Query is available on Power BI. It is available on Excel as well. It is available on Power Automate, SQL Server, and something called Dataverse. Dataverse is nothing but a data warehouse that Microsoft has. And the language that Power Query is using, so what you see here, everyone, let me close this. So all of this, right, what you see in the formula bar is nothing but a language called M, just the letter M. Like you have C and C++ and R, this is a language called M. Don't worry if you have never heard of this earlier, because this is very new. I mean, the language came about 10 years back, but it is only in the last 1 or 2 years that it has become popular, right? Once Power BI came. And of course, if you want to read more about it, you can definitely go through the documentation and the language reference. All right, now let me take you through all the steps. First, if you look on the left side, we have the parameter. That means the user can choose what file they want to select. Remember, we have 3 files in that folder, and there was something called the sample file. So how does the user select the file? We are creating a parameter where the user can choose the file. But which file is the user choosing? He's choosing file number 0. 0 basically means the first file. So if there are 3 files in the folder, 17, 18, 19, that means I have 17, 18, 19. This is file number 0. This is file number 1. This is file number 2. Why is it not 1, 2, 3? Why is it 0, 1, 2? Because the base value, like programming, is 0. Right? Most programming by default is 0 as the base value. Okay, so it means I'm choosing the first file as a sample file. And then what am I doing? I want to take the content from that file. So far, I've only selected the file. I've not gone through the columns and taken all the data from it. That is where we are writing a function. So if you see this icon, everyone, there's a function. And this function looks like this. What does it say? it says that first choose the parameter, which is the first file, which is the Excel workbook. Now from that workbook, what do we want? We want to select a sheet. Which sheet do we want to select? We want to select sheet 1. After we select sheet 1, what do we want to select from the sheet? We want to select the data from the sheet. That is how the process is working. And all of these things are happening automatically. I don't have to do anything. But then why am I even explaining it to you? Because for today, you don't need to learn all this. You don't even need to look at this, right? But then if you want to be an advanced user tomorrow, then it is important to start learning this a little bit, right, at a time. So you can't learn everything at the same time, but a little bit at a time. So we finally get the data for the source file, right? The sample file. But the problem is this data is only for 2017, as you can see. So what it has done is in these steps from 1, 2, 3 to 4, it has managed to take the sample file and take all the data from the sample file, which is great. But the problem is it has only given me the data from one file, but I need to repeat this process for all the other 3 files as well, or maybe the other 30 files. That is where the final query comes in. What does it do? First step, it says, Havish, where is your folder? So the function is folder.files and the path. This is very simple. So it goes to a folder path and it tells me that that folder has 4 files in it. Now this is a table, right? What you see here is a table with 4 rows in it. Now from this table, how many rows do we want to select? So I want to select this one. I want to select this one. I want to select this one, but I do not want to select this one. And why not? Because this is a hidden file, right, everyone? Because this file, the last one, is hidden, right? And because I want to not select the hidden file, the second step says that only select the rows from the table, that only select 3 out of 4 rows. So what is it saying? That if the hidden attribute is not equal to true, that means it is a hidden file. If it is a hidden file, don't select it. Only select the file if it is visible. Does it make sense? So if I do the opposite, if I say no, only select the hidden file, false, what will happen? Now it only selects the hidden file. So do you see how you can make changes to all this on the fly? So if I remove this and make it true, now it says, okay, I want to select only the visible files, right? Okay. Now, once this is done, the problem is that I only have the data about the file. So what all do we have with us? We have the name, extension, date access, date modified, date created. Attribute is nothing but these useless details like the size, kind, system, directory, but the data has not been selected, right? The folder path, right? Now, if you look at the content here also, you notice it only allows you to reselect the sheet that you want. Now you might say, but Havish, where is the data? Like so far it has only selected the name of the file, but where is the data? That is where we have to use this part. So this transform file, the function that we created, I have to run this function for each of the 3 files. So that is exactly what we're doing. In the next step, you notice it says that invoke a custom function. So what is it doing? It is saying that add a new column called transform file. And in that column, for each of the 3 files that we have, do the transform content. That means this is being done for all the 3. I'm doing the transform file for the first one, the second one, and the third one, like this. Now, once I do that, then I want to rename my column. So right now, my column is called name, right? Which is the name of the file. But name doesn't mean much, though. So I want to call it the source name so that there's no confusion. So I'm just saying that table.rename column and take the old column called name and change it to source.name. Finally, now I have come to a point where I have the 2 things that I require. I have the name of the file and I also have the content of the file, which is this one. Everything else I can delete, I can discard because we don't need it. So I will go to remove columns and say that only select 2 columns from my table. Which are the 2 columns that we want? First and second, that's it. But the problem is that all of my columns have been aggregated. That means if I click on this button, you can see that I do have all the columns, order date, ship date, customer ID, city, state, but they're not being shown separately. They have all been clubbed together. So I want to expand it, isn't it? That is why I'm writing that I want to expand my table column now. But at this stage, each column is undefined. ABC 1 to 3 means it's not a data type. We don't know if it's a date or a number or a decimal or a fraction or a text. I don't know anything about it. So everything is ABC 1 to 3, ABC 1 to 3, ABC 1 to 3. That means that I don't know what is the type of data that we have in each column. So Power Query is automatically detecting that, and it is saying that, okay, Avish, I feel that this is a date, right? I feel that this is a number. And if you look towards the end, I feel that this is a text, and I feel that this is a decimal number. It is auto detecting. It might do it perfectly, it might not do it perfectly, but it is trying to help you. Now see, as a basic user, you don't really need to get into all this. You just need to know that I will select my folder. Even if there are 300 files in it, I will click on transform and load, and that's it. All the data will be clubbed together. But that is not enough, right? Because you have to know in more detail how all of these things are working, right? So yeah, before I come back to the PowerPoint and ask you a few questions, no, let me do one thing. Let me first ask you these questions, and then I will give you a chance to ask your questions. Tell me. 3 files, each of the files has 3 columns in it, but file B has the column name, which is a little different. Like it is called sale. In the other one, it is called sales. What do you think? Will it work or will it not work? It will not work, right? So Power Query is very, very rigid. I mean, it is so rigid that even if the uppercase, lowercase is not the same, right? Like in one file, it is called total with a capital T. In another file, it is total with a lowercase t. It will say it is not the same. So you have to make sure that the name and the spelling of the column is exactly the same, right? That means that if in one file it says total like this, and in the other one it says total like this, in the third one also it has to be total. This will not be allowed. Now you might say, but why is it so? I can't answer that question. It is just the case. This is how it is. But if you need both the columns, if you need C and C1, then this is a more advanced operation. What we do is we create a dummy file with 4 columns in it, A, B, C, C1, and we use that as a sample file. This has been covered in my course, but yes, the short answer is it will not work. Okay. All right. What about now? File A has C, A, B. File B has C, A, B. File C only has B and A. It doesn't have C. What will happen when I'm trying to combine everything from a folder? It will work, everyone. It will work, but there will be a null value here. Null basically means a blank. In Power Query, there is no concept of a null, of a blank cell. Like in Excel, we can just press delete and it becomes blank, right? In Power Query, we call it null, which is the absence of value, right? So it will work, but it will show you a null, which is okay. Okay, what will happen now? So file A has ABC, file B has ABC, file C has AB, C, and B. No, no. If I choose file A as the sample file, everyone, if I choose file A as my sample file, what will happen? Everyone, think about it. When I say that file A is the sample, am I not telling Power Query that this is the perfect file? This is the sample that I'm giving you. So if I'm giving A as the sample, what will it do when it finds another new column? It will reject it. Makes sense, right? See, what is the point of a sample? When I tell you that this is a sample, would you not say that, oh, this means that this is the ideal file, which has all the columns in it? If you find anything less or anything more, that's not correct. So if you choose file A as the sample, it will not choose column D. So can you tell me what is the solution here? If I want column D as well, what should I do? It should be fairly straightforward. If I want to choose file C column D as well, what should I do? Exactly, I will change the sample file, right? So rather than choosing file A, I will choose file C. That way what will happen? It will show a null value in A and B, which is okay, right? So now do you see the relevance of the sample? If all the three files are exactly the same, like in my case, all the three files were exactly the same. Does it matter which sample file we are choosing? No, because how does it matter? All the three files are exactly the same. It only matters when the files are different. Like in this case, the files are different. That is where you have to know which should be the sample file. Okay, let's do one more. Okay, what about now? There are three files. Each of the three files has three columns. Spelling is same. Number of columns are same. Order is the same. Everything is same. But the name of the sheet is different. Do you think it will work or will it not work? Like the first two files have sheet A and the third file has sheet C. It will not work, right? So Power Query is very rigid. Power Query says that you need to have the same sheet name. If the sheet name is different, it will not work, right? There is an alternative to it where you can use the index number of the sheet. That's a more advanced example, but the short answer is not possible, right? Okay, if one of the sheets is hidden, what will happen? Will it pick it up or will it not pick up? The sheet name is same, files are same, but in one of the files, the sheet is hidden. What do you think? Will it work or will it not work? Will not work, right? So I hope by now you're getting the idea that most of the time it doesn't work unless the data is very clean, right? Okay. One more question. There is one folder that has two files in it. So file A, file B. There's another folder in the parent folder which has file. This should be actually file D in it. Will it work or will it not work? So if I select this folder, will it pick up all the four files? What do you think? So the problem is there's one folder which has two folders in it, and each of the two folders has Anil, a yes with a question mark is very confusing because I'm not sure if you're trying to say a yes or a no, but yes, it does work. So you notice that it will work perfectly. And you also have the choice to select or deselect any folder or file. So if you feel, but what if I don't want to select one file for some reason? You want one file to not be selected, you can always do that. Okay. I'm not sure why this is being repeated. Oh, sure. Hidden file we've already done. Hidden file does not get picked up. Remember, I showed this to you. Hidden file does not get picked up, like the text file did not get picked up, but you have the option of picking it up if you want, right? And okay, what if the file is protected? Do you think it will work or not work? So there are two files, B and C, which don't have a password, but file A has a password on it. Do you think it will work or not work? It doesn't work, which is good. So this is not going to break the Excel password. So if there is a file that is encrypted, you will get this error saying that we encountered an error while trying to connect and the file contains corrupted data. Basically, it tells you the data is corrupted, but whenever a file is password protected, it will tell you the data is corrupted. Okay, so I hope this gives you a sense. Obviously, there is a lot more to it. What I've showed you is not just the only examples that you will come across, but I hope this gives you a good sense of what all is possible, right? Okay, I would like you to do something for me. Please click on close and apply in the top left corner. Okay, let me answer the question first. A question in Power Query, when clicking on expanded table column, the icon of order data is different, but when you click on change type, the icon changes. Yeah, because what happens is that after expanding, right, at this step, all the columns have been grouped, but when I expand it, this is the ABC 1 to 3, ABC 1 to 3, ABC 1 to 3. ABC 1 to 3 means that the column is undefined. As of now, Power Query has not assigned any data type. Power Query says that this can be anything. It can be a number, it can be a text, it can be a geography, it can be time, it can be anything. Right? So this is undefined. But when you say that this has become this, that means that it is detecting that this is a date value. But if you want to change it, like if you manually say, no, this is not a number, the customer ID is actually a text, you can always do that like this. You can replace it. Okay, so please click on close and apply, everyone. And please make a card with the sales value and confirm that you are all getting the same result that I am, which is 384,000. Make a card with the sales value and make sure that all of you are getting the same result, 384,000, 384,000. Okay, now just to prove to you that it is automated. So if I add another file to the folder, that will also work, right? You can do it with me, or if you don't want to, I leave it up to you. But I just wanted to show you that if I select 2020, okay, please watch everyone. If I select the 2025 like this, copy it, and I paste it in the same folder in 17, 18, 19, look what will happen. Right? So now there are 4 files in the folder, 17, 18, 19, and 2020. And if I come back and click on refresh, see what happens. One click, and now it shows you 589. How cool is that? So what we have done is we have created a workflow. So we have created an automation so that as my number of files keep on getting increased, or they get modified, or the old ones get deleted, immediately you notice that the result, the dashboard will also keep on getting updated. Right? Any problem doing this or any questions on this, anyone? Right? So 5,89,000, right?
So could you please repeat one more time?
Which part?
This value part.
Sure. Like how to create this card, or how did it take the 2025?
How to create?
Sure. So what I've done is I have selected this, the card, right? And I put the sales value here. That's all. Sure. Please share your screen. Let's have a look. Yeah, let me read it. Hold on. right? Just close it, go back to Power Query once. I'll tell you how to do that. Can you click on that arrow in the top right corner? In the top right corner, there's a down arrow, right? Just click on that. Okay. Now click on transform data. Yeah, once more. Just go full screen. No, on this one, on this window, just go full screen. Right. Now, if you notice, there is a blue line, right, that is coming below the column heading, below source name, on date, ship date. That means there's something that is going wrong here. So let's try to identify why that is happening. Can you click on the first step called source on the right side? So far, everything is okay. Click on the second step. And that's okay. Click on the third step. Just keep on clicking on the steps one by one to see at what point. Hold on. Do you see this? This is where some problem happened. If you notice that new text document has got picked up. Now go back a few steps. This is okay. Go back. Right. Now, and once more, go to the second step. Now, if you remember what I said, at the second step, the text document should have been removed, right? Because it's a hidden file. Now, what this means is that the file is not hidden. I'll tell you what to do. Go back to the folder. Right? I can't see the folder. I can still see your Power Query window. So just make sure to share your screen completely. Select the file, the new text document. Yeah, so you notice it is not hidden. I'm not sure how it became visible, but anyway, just go to the options. No, not like this. Click on the three dots that you see, or you can click on show more options also. Right click. Yeah, and okay, you don't have it here. Just go to properties and make it, no, not like this. Cancel this, right click. Go to show more options. Go to properties and make it hidden at the bottom. So you're working on Windows 11, right? Windows 11 has a lot of bugs in it. That's why this might happen. Now it is hidden. Go back to Power Query and refresh. Click on refresh preview. There's an option. It might be the sixth option. Yeah. Now click on all the steps one by one. Yeah, just on all the steps one by one, and it should work. Perfect. Now close and apply. Right, perfect. Cool. So I'll reshare my screen. And see everyone, these type of things will happen all the time. And that's the nature of work. It doesn't mean that you made a mistake or you're not clear about what you're doing. That's not the point, to not make mistakes. The point is to learn how to fix them. I face these errors all the day. Every 30 minutes, there will be some new error that will come up. But then you have to train yourself at not getting worried about the error, trying to identify why that error is happening, and obviously finding the solution for it. Okay, so like I did, you can also try to do the same thing. Put the 2025 in the same folder as 17, 18, 19. And once you do that, you notice that I can click on refresh and my data will get refreshed to 589 like this. Right. Wait, any other question, anyone? Can you imagine how people do all this work if you don't have Power BI or the knowledge of working on Power BI? I can tell you of organizations where senior people, with 15, 16 years of experience are literally opening each file, copying the data, and putting it one below the other. Because they don't know any better, right? It's just that they don't realize that there is a feature where they can put everything in a folder and it will work. So even if they have the same template, they still open everything and literally copy and paste. And imagine the amount of time that takes, right? And the amount of time you're wasting, in fact. Cool. By the way, what I've shown you is a task, okay? It's not a Power BI feature. So append is something that will work everywhere. So for example, if I show you in Python, combine files from a folder, same thing, right? What we did here. You notice that I can do the same thing here as well. Look at this. So even if you know nothing of Python, you will still be able to follow it, right? What we're doing is we're saying that these are the file names that we have, right? So 1, 2, and 3. Then I'm opening my output file because after the 3 files having combined, it has to be saved into a new file, right? So basically, I'm opening a new file called output file, any name that you want to give. W here means that you're writing to the file. So you're creating a new file. R would mean you're reading the file. W means you're writing the file. And then you're calling it out file. And what you're doing is you're saying that the open file name, that means one by one, you're going through each of these files, right? You're taking the content and that's it. You're putting it in the output file. So it's the same thing that we're doing, but Python makes it so much easier, doesn't it? Think about it. In Power Query, it's much more, obviously, even in Python with Excel, it becomes a little more complex because you have to tell it which sheet to go to and all that. But then, generally speaking, obviously, this would be much more flexible than compared to what you can do on Power Query. So just look at this. Like same example that I did, I have 100 plus files that I want to concatenate. And what do we do here? I'm using something called Glob. Okay? Glob is something available on Python. It's a funny name for a very useful feature. It's called the Glob function. Anyway, I'll not get into detail now. But what it does is I'm saying that first find the matching pattern. So I'm searching for all the CSV files in my folder. And that's it. Then I'll use something called pd.concat. PD is for pandas, concat is for concatenate. That's it. It's done. That's all. So yes, if somebody asks you, is Power Query much better than what we could do in Excel or with Visual Basic? Yes. But if somebody says, is Power BI the best tool in the market? Of course not. If you do it using Python, it will be so much more powerful, so much more flexible. But then 99% of the people will never know how to do that, right? And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, right? If everybody knew how to do programming, then why do we need data scientists and people who work in coding, right? So that is a different area of work and type of work. But for majority of people, Power BI is the tool of choice, right? For most organizations. And remember, in any case, even if you wanted to do this on Python, you can because Power BI is integrated with Python. Perfect. Any other question? Anyone? Great. I know it's a lot that we are covering, but let's complete the example. Let us take our customer name. Let's go to Excel workbook. Please save the work as well, what we are doing. We'll do one, we'll just close this example. The model I'll cover, DAX I will cover once we come back, right, in the evening. But for now, let's not do that. Let's please, let's just finish one thing. After that, in the next 10 minutes, I'll cover something different. So let's come to Excel workbook. And we come to model and this one, IDMB. Okay. So we select ID and name and click on transform. So now you can see that there are two queries that we are working with. We are working with our sales data 17, 18, 19, and we're working with ID and name. What is the half green? Yeah. So the half green and the half black here, if you hover your mouse, tells you that there are some blank cells that I got picked up, right? In fact, this could have been one of my first points. Why are these blank cells picked up? Can anybody tell me? Like there are 492 names, but then why is it picking up 301 empty cells? Let's see if somebody is able to give me the answer to this. Yes, so the total is 792, out of which 301 are blank. But why? That's the question. Rather 793. But why is it blank? If you come back to the Excel file, why is it picking up these blank cells and why is it picking up exactly 301? What's the reason for it? If I come down, is there anything written in those cells 790? Nothing. If you notice, this area is completely blank right in front of you, right? So why is it picking up these blank cells? What would be your guess? See, these are real problems, right, that you'll be facing. So you have to think of the possible answers. Why could this be happening? Just guess, why do you think this is happening? On what basis do you have to guess? On any basis. See, when you are working as a data analyst, you have to think of different ideas, right? You will say, but how do I know what could be the reason? I also don't know. So, like the data set I showed you yesterday, the one for Bajaj, when I have to think of how formulas are working and how to get a result, do you think somebody tells me what I'm supposed to, what formula to write and what process to follow? Absolutely not. You have to think of all the possibilities, right? Right now, it is even better for you because if you tell me what you're thinking, I can tell you if you're right or wrong. Imagine that when I do this myself, I have no idea whether my theory is correct or not. So I have to try it and I have to see if it works or not. Right? So this is a constant process of hit and try. You try something, it doesn't work. You try something else, it doesn't work. And you keep on trying it 100 different times. Right? Okay, so the short answer is that this is a very common problem. When you're taking data from Excel files, many times, very often, it might pick up these extra rows as well, right? Now the question is, why does that happen? See, there are many reasons for it. One reason is that in the past, there could have been a value written here. Right? In the past, there could have been a value written here. And because that value was there in the past, even though if I remove it now, it still remembers that there was a value. So Excel still remembers that, oh, there was a value that was written in 793. So it continues to pick up 793, right? Sometimes there is some remnant. So even though you delete the value from a programming perspective, there is something that remains in the cell, which you can't see, but there is something in the cell, right? And like this, there are 15 other possibilities as to why it happens. But the short answer is that you have to be very observant. So whenever you load a data set, you have to check that has the data being loaded the way it looks on the Excel file. Because see, you might say, we call it garbage in, garbage out. If the source file has some problem, obviously when you load the data, it will also have a problem. Now you can't blame the data. You can't blame Excel and say it is your fault. You did not understand it, or Power Query is to be blamed. It is your responsibility as a data analyst to keep an eye on all these things. At every step, you have to check, is it working properly or not? Is it working the way I expect it to or not? So like Harveen very smartly noticed that there is that two colors that are appearing. Even if the colors were not appearing, let me give you an example. Let's say that even if this color was not there or you forgot to look at it, I would still have looked here at the bottom, which says 793. Right? Wow, why would I do that? Because whenever I'm loading a data set from Excel, I will always want to double check. I would also want to check that, oh, is it the same number that I had in Excel, 492 and 4? If it is not the same number, then I know there's something going wrong, right? So you have to be very careful with these things. Anyway, what do we do now? We want to remove it. So let's just click on the drop down and remove the null values. And that only gives me 492. Right? Okay. We do have a few things left. So one is that we have to fix this name. It says Paz Darren Oberfilliner Brown Mick. We don't want that. We want it to be Darren Paz Filliner Ober Mick Brown. If you remember from the first training, the first example that I covered for you, which was this one, remember? Exactly the same thing, no? I mean, not exactly, but almost the same thing. What are we trying to do here? We are trying to reverse the position of the last name and the first name, right? The same thing we are doing in Excel as well. So here we have to write this formula where we said that we have to write right, length, find, left, all that. So I'll be showing you how to use a little bit of machine learning within Excel, which is an AI-based transformation. Right? So this is where AI can actually be used to write the formula for you. Now, if I ask you, can you tell me how to make Powers, comma, Darren as Darren Paz? The formula on Excel as it is very difficult. And if you write the formula on Power Query, it will become even more difficult. Why? Because Power Query is a different language, right? Power Query does not even have a function called left. It has a function called text.start. So imagine it's a double problem. You have to write a complex formula, and you have to write the complex formula in a language that you don't even understand. So imagine how difficult that is. But this is where we have this beautiful feature called column from examples, right? So this is an AI feature which allows you to give a sample and Power Query will write the formula for you automatically. Right? I will not do it now because I want to do it properly once we come back in the evening at 6:30, but I just want to show you how it works. Don't do it, just watch. The beauty of this tool is that if I give it one sample, rather two samples, Darren Paz and Felina over, you will see that it uses AI and it automatically gives me the result. How cool is that? I did it right in front of you. No? Did I write any formula? Did I write this in front of you? No. I just had to give it two samples. So it's this absolutely fantastic feature. And this is the future of analytics. Like one way of using analytics is to create dashboards. When we say, show me sales as a pie chart for 2015 in UP. The other way of using automation and AI is to build your formulas automatically, like I did just in front of you right now. Okay. So to take the same example that we did in Excel that day to create an email ID. So if I say I want to create darren.parse@gmail.com, that's what we did, right? And one more. So we have Felina.over@gmail.com. Look what happens. In one click, it will give me all the results. How cool is that? And the entire formula is coming automatic. Absolutely brilliant. Completely changes the way we work on Excel as well, right? Because these things can be done on Excel using Power Query as well. Anyway, we will not do this now, so I'll also cancel it. Once we come back, we will start with this. So we're going to do Power Query, a column from examples. I will also then tell you how to create a model, right? So right now, once I remove the null values, you notice that there are two things coming in the model view in this button. There is 17, 18, 19, 20, the sales data, and there is also the ID and name. So I'll be telling you how to create a relationship between both of them without having to do a VLOOKUP, right? So we come back, we do column from examples, we see how to create a relationship between two tables. After that, I tell you how to do calculations, right, using DAX. Yeah, so that's it for now. Please let me know if you have any questions. And please make sure to save the file as well.
All good, sir.
All good for now? All right. Anything otherwise that you would like to ask me other than what we have been covering? Okay, anyway, we're going to meet in the evening, so we'll have a look. I will also request you to do one more thing. Even though you can do this later, on Power BI, just search for the data stories gallery. That will give you an idea what type of dashboards are people around the world creating. It's called the Data Stories Gallery. It's a community website. I'm sharing the link on the chat window. The Data Stories Gallery. So there are hundreds of dashboards available here, like even the Financial Times one, and you can get a sense of what type of things can be done on Power BI. Some of them will be very simple, some of them will be very complex, but at least it opens up your mind to the possibilities, right? Because it's not about doing the same thing over and over again, right? So you see that there are very different things that people have done here. Cool. All right, great. So let's meet at 6:30 then, and we will continue with the model, column from examples, and calculations. Right. Also, you have to come back to me for the Tableau bonus session that we're doing. So just let me know when you would like to have that. It's not necessary that you have to get it done now, as in the next few days. If you want to do it after a week, I'm okay with that as well. Right? So please discuss amongst yourselves and let me know.
Yes, sir. I will let you know.
Cool. All right. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you at 6:30 in the evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.